there's one thing I want to clear up right now, so it's absolutely clear, so we don't have to ask any more questions about it later on. I didn't have a chance to show it in the video clips that I just played, but this is a paper lantern. This is what a paper lantern is supposed to look like. Yeah, okay, some of them have the Swiss flag, some of them don't. But, you know, it's the only one I had in the house. Anyways, it's very much a paper lantern. It's made of a paper, very thin. In this case, it's a very thin cardboard. Not open in the bottom, very much open on the top so that heat can get out. Heat, flame, whatever, because you stick an electric light or a candle or something else in there. Whatever you got. And because of its construction, the way the light, was it refracts, however you say that word, off of the interior here, just the way it's designed, paper lantern can also do this. That's just the way paper lanterns work, okay? Very handy for storage, okay? So this is what Shinkenger is trying to get across with the DX DaiGoyō set. Now I can totally understand a toy company trying to modernize the old-fashioned paper lantern into something a little more modern and excitable, but I don't think they quite pulled it off. There's only about 2 of 3 things that they got right. First off, it lights up. Second off, it collapses down. And I suppose collapsing is kind of interesting. It does have this kind of nice handle on it, but I don't think kids are going to go for this very much. Besides, it doesn't look anything at all like that does in the show. Well, except for one little thing, and that would be this huge extra bulky section on the bottom here. That's kind of what they did in the show, but it's obvious that that was needed just for the space for this to take up. So, yeah, the conversion they made, not really all that impressed. It just looks like an ordinary, everyday lantern. I don't know, I gotta give this thing a thumbs down. I'm just not impressed with this thing at all. I don't know about anybody else, but paper lantern mode looks a lot less like a paper lantern, although it has this rib section here and it has a big old samurai in the front. But it actually looks more like a beer stein, you know? I mean, it even comes with a detachable lid. More on that later. And it can hold things, which can be dispensed. I'm just saying. Transparent red was all the way through. It sits on 4 feet. Interesting, but nothing particularly special. And the trigger for the hidden disc gimmick. Trigger for the electronics, sound, light and sounds, speaker, on-off switch, shoulder connection point, which is kind of interesting. It's made of a transparent plastic. It's clear transparent plastic, which is kind of weird. You'd think it would have been solid plastic. Whatever. I'll get into that in comments. And that's it for paper lantern mode. And the other major component of DaiGoyō is his G-ite mode. Now, people outside of Japan probably won't immediately recognize this. It's not very well known, but it was definitely used during feudal times in Japan, when swords and daggers and various bladed weapons were the common, you know, before gunpowder and all those things, blah, 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 blah. I don't know my Japanese history. Hey, it's not my history, period. Anyways, one quick thing here is that Super Sentai weapons are notorious for being kind of chibi-sized. You know, they're usually shrunken down a bit in about half scale or 3/4 scale, something like that. Well, for a G-ite, this is actually the correct size. It's about 14 inches from here to here. That's about the right size. And all that a G-ite is a metal rod, or baton if you wish, with a hook about 1/3 of the way up. What would happen is that guards and police officers and occupations of a similar nature would carry these as they're out on patrol. Now, it could be used as a defensive weapon for whacking people, okay? You know, that's certainly, you know, it's a metal rod. What else are they going to do with it? Hey, don't hit other people! But this hook here is what makes this kind of interesting. I mentioned earlier it was used during feudal times when swords and daggers and such were the common weapon that were used. What happens is an assailant's blade would hit here and it would slide down into the hook, and then through the training and technique that the patrolman or the guard uses, they would use this and rip the blade out of the assailant's hand. So this isn't really a weapon all by itself, but it's actually a disarming weapon, which is actually Pretty interesting in my eyes. Never heard of this before, but that, you know, for so simple an item, damn, that's clever. So anyways, you have this, and so what you would do is you would place the paper lantern in your left hand, the G8 in your right hand, and there you have DaiGoyō in paper lantern and G8 mode. And the combination of these two items was referencing... yeah. And the combination of these two items references an occupation from feudal Japan, which is known as, please forgive me if I say this wrong, okapiki. Okapiki. However you say that, it's got two K's and it's got two P's in it. I don't know. Which was a night watchman or police officer of feudal Japan, who would, you know, travel at nighttime with a paper lantern and then would disarm assailants with a G8. And so that is the purpose of having these two items. Because DaiGoyō is a sentient mecha, and we actually see him do this in the show on his own, I'm just going to raise up the head because the eyes always flash whenever an audio function is played. So whether he's speaking or whether it's an action sound of some kind, his eyes are always glowing, whether this is up or down. So I'm going to leave it up so I just don't have to do double duty. When you turn him on, you are always greeted with this. This is the standard response from the toy, which is not exactly a smart toy. It doesn't know whether it's shifted into paper lantern mode or robot mode. But regardless, those lights in there will always flash for a couple of seconds after every single sound effect, and then they'll turn themselves off just like that to save power. The lights in his eyes always come on when a special effect is playing. These lights will always flash here, whether there's an effect playing or not. The voice that you hear is the same as the one that you hear in the series, and all of the sound effects that you hear play randomly when you press this button back here. And he has more than a few phrases to say. And that's all the sound effects that you get out of DaiGoyō when you just press once quickly, and that's it. That right there, by the way, is his most common phrase. So that one, even though I say they play randomly, that particular one, goyo de, plays a lot. It's really annoying. The other thing you can do is, it's not very much, but you can actually hold the button down. It'll play a phrase, and then... And that is it for the standalone electronic feature of DaiGoyō. Now let's talk about the other electronic feature with this toy. The DX DaiGoyō set actually comes with two Hiden discs. One of them is the attack disc. Now you're actually not going to see the Shinkenger wield this one. This actually is used in multiples exclusively by DaiGoyō for his finishing attacks and special attacks and whatnot. So this is the disc that you see him using. Now the pattern on it might not be immediately recognized until you attach it to the Shinkenmaru. Just like so. And here's the pattern you get. It just looks like a wheel turning. Well, that's exactly what it is. You see, DaiGoyō originated as a paper lantern on the gold sushi cart that Genta, Shinken Gold, pushes around. And so this is the wheel, the metal and wooden wheel of a sushi seller's cart. And so that's what the attack disc is. And the other Hiden disc included in this set is the help disc. The picture here is the forward profile of DaiGoyō, because you can see it says Samurai on there again, except that it rotates back and forth. So Here the word samurai, or I'm sorry, the kanji samurai is forward. Here it is backwards, forward, backwards, etc., etc., etc. Now, why would it have that, and why do you call it the help disk? Well, again, it's not immediately obvious until you attach it to the Shinkenmaru. And this is the animation you get. Now, they call it the help disk, presumably because it goes from black to red, indicative of the police klaxon, the police siren, the flashing lights, or whatever they are, the strobe lights. That's what this is supposed to represent. Of course, if you spin it fast enough, it actually turns kind of brown. Unfortunately, I have not seen far enough into Shinkenger yet to know if this is used exclusively by DaiGoyō, Shinkengold, or any of the other Shinkengers. So, sorry I can't fill you in on that part. And so that is it for the 2 specialized Hiden discs included with the DX DaiGoyō set. Now, the reason I made the joke about the beer stein earlier is that DaiGoyō actually does open up. Grab these 2 tabs to either side of its head, squeeze together, and the whole top section pops off. Feel this under here. Takes 2 AAA batteries and the screws right there. It's one of the strange arrangements for batteries, though, because they both face the same direction. You know, usually one faces one way, the other, and the other. This one, they're both pointed the same direction. Weird. And then you've got this thing down here. Remember that. Just in case you're wondering, there's an LED here and an LED here. Anyways, enough about this. I think I've teased this out as long as I could because I'm pretty sure that you've all figured out by now that you can actually put Hiden discs inside DaiGoyō. Several of them, actually. As a matter of fact, you can hold up to 8 discs inside here at one time. And look at this. I just so happen to have 6 more Hiden discs lying around, which I will now put in here. There is, I should have pointed this out a little earlier, but there is a little, see that white thing in there? A little watermark, if you wish. And then there's another white painted mark in there, which lets you know that you are not to go any higher than that. I mentioned in the initial wraparound that these 2 trigger thingies here can move. Well, that is to be used with the second electronic feature that the DX DaiGoyō set has. And here's what happens when you press on the trigger. You remove the hidden disc and you get and he actually has a number of different phrases which I will now be going through. Okay, now that last one is particularly important. Because in every Shinkenger toy commercial, be it for a DX toy, an electronic, role-play weapon, whatever it is you choose, at the beginning of every single commercial, there's a man and a woman that sings out, which, you know, Hiden disc. Well, in DaiGoyō's case, in his commercial, at the beginning of his commercial, he actually sings along with that commercial. So when he goes, Hiden desuku, that actually comes from the toy commercials, and so he's singing along and promoting the gimmick. Good for him. There's one other gimmick, though, that I would like to point out. And that is, what happens if you leave a heating disk inside for too long? Well, let's find out. Wait for it. And he'll just say that over and over and over and over and over, and it'll keep flashing, by the way, until you remove it. At which point it behaves the way it normally does. Yes, that was splendid, by the way. So that is it for the electronic features of the DX DaiGoyō set. And now I shall reveal the secret of the magician's trick. And that is... Remember this button I was talking about earlier, by the way? Those are the LEDs. Remember that button I was telling you about earlier? Well, what happens when you push up on it is, or rather specifically when a disc slides past it, it pushes up and you get... And so, you know, when it sticks in there for too long, it's actually pushing up. When you pull it out, you get... And so you don't really have to run discs through here every single time. You can just... And so on and so on and so forth. There. Now I'm done with the electronic feature. Let's get this guy transformed already, huh? This toy has an extremely simple transformation process. So simple, you know what? I didn't even have to look at the instructions for it. You can just watch the show and you know what happens. You already know about the head, but I'm just going to save that for the big reveal. That's it for the paper lantern part. Just like with the sheath on the Sakana Maru, there's a button on one side, and on the other, you press them together at the same time. Careful, watch your fingers. And you attach this piece here. You attach this piece here. Lift up on this. And there you have DaiGoyō in robot mode. Oh, look. A sticker. And I didn't even put it on there. Call me a little more crazier than usual, but it seems to me that this is not your average, ordinary, everyday giant robo head. Kind of looks like a... I don't know the word for it, but it does vaguely seem reminiscent of a hat that someone from feudal Japan might wear. I could be totally wrong about that, but yeah, anyways, that's what I thought. I don't know about the face. That's just pure on giant robo. A little bit of detail at the top. Hands are molded in a single piece. It's actually quite hollow. Left arm isn't too much different. Well, except for the wrist and the hand. I find it rather amusing to help him with his balance issues because his legs are splayed a little to the side, and heaven forbid his foot is not big enough as it is. He's actually got these tiny little tabs that I loll at. So yeah. And how convenient is it? Ordinarily when you have to deal with a giant robot, you hold it between the legs. You might hold it by the arm. I would strongly advise not holding this guy by the arm. But this guy, the handle's already built into him. How awesome is that? You know, usually it's a big complicated backpack or whatever. Posability is as follows. Ratchets every 45 degrees all the way around, and that is it. Missed opportunity for swiveling wrist joints, missed opportunity for pop-out, fold-in elbows. Can't really say I blame them for having non-posable legs, but that's just how it works. And the legs do not turn side to side either. They are very much rectangular. That's it. By the way, in case you're wondering, it is possible to hide the hole here on the opposite side, but I would advise against it because it actually puts a lot of pressure over there, and it's actually harder to take it out. So you're just going to have to deal with doing it that way. And that's it. Yes, it is a silly little combination, but I suppose I gotta bring up Shinken DaiGoyō because it did very much appear in the show. Nothing special here. And because of how DaiGoyō works, the legs do not turn side to side. Oh, and by the way, even though Shinken DaiGoyō uses the G8 mode, it cannot be attached in any way to Shinken DaiGoyō. Might be able to put it in there. I'm sure that thumb that isn't a thumb might be used in some unique way. I don't know. You figure it out. I've tried. I've failed numerously. So there is Shinken DaiGoyō. Well, wait. What happens to the arms and legs from DaiGoyō then? Well, I suppose as an alternative, you could do this. I'm pretty certain this doesn't happen in the show, but and I have no idea what this combination's called. I'm sure it says it in the instructions. And of course, you can put the Daishinkin here and the Hiden shield there. So, yeah, I don't know what this thing is, but it looks pretty silly all around. Before I get too far into my conclusion, there's one thing I'd like to clear up real quickly. I'm rather middle of the road when it comes to secondary heroes and mecha and other characters who were not born out of the same creation technology or magic or whatever that created the base core 3 or 5 ranger team. So, Bull Black, White Radiata, however you say her name, Zuban, was it Gamzin from O-Ranger? There's a bunch of those. Those are all secondary heroes and characters and mecha and things like that. And really, for me, it just comes down to how well do they interact with the Ranger team for that particular year. Do the mecha interact with the mecha? Do the characters have compatible weapon systems? Does the armor and the weapons features and blah blah blah, is it kind of cohesive in the way they all work together? That's kind of the important thing for me in determining whether or not I like them or not. So I just want you to know that that is not a factor in whether or not I like or dislike DaiGoyō, okay? I'm just treating it as an individual entity all by itself. Yeah, it can interact with the Hiden discs and the other origami, but DaiGoyō himself is not an origami. He was born out of electronic Mojikara, whatever that is. And so he is a secondary character that was created outside of the way the Shinkenger and the origami were created. Yeah, he can interact with those things, but he is not technically part of the line. He is technically not an origami. So I just want to get that out of the way real quick. When DaiGoyō originally came out in 2009, I looked at text and picture reviews, I looked at video reviews, just, did the whole shebang on whether I wanted to get this thing or not. I did my research, and I listened to a lot of different opinions on it, and ultimately I decided not to get it. It was kind of cute, and I could see they were trying to recreate a paper lantern. I had no idea what this thing is. I mean, that's a terrible looking sword or dagger. I mean, what is this thing anyways? I don't get it. That was my opinion in 2009. It was part of the toy line, but I ultimately decided that I didn't need it. And so summer 2011 rolls around, and HobbyLink Japan, who is one of our big sponsors and one of our largest advertisers on CollectionDX.com, came to us and said, hey, could you advertise this product, review this product on your site? Our imperious leader looked at me, and I looked at him and said, what? And he said, can you review this because you pretty much are the Super Sentai guy on CollectionDX.com? Well, I thought about it for a bit, and to be fair, I didn't and don't outright hate DaiGoyō. I have no malice towards it whatsoever, and I didn't originally. I just ultimately decided I didn't want or need it. It was a cute little thing, and it wasn't that offensive. But there were two things that ultimately led to my decision to getting this. One, I already had all the toys necessary that could interact with it, namely the Shinkenmaru and DX Shinken-O, which are the only toys that are necessary to interact with everything that's in here. Yeah, you can stick whatever extra Hiden discs in here that you want to, but ultimately it's those other two toys that allow you to interact with this. And the other reason was, ooh, a reviewer's discount. Sweet! And thus I ended up with a DX DaiGoyō set, even though I wasn't really feeling good or particularly bad about it. So I opened up the brand new toy and played around with it for about a day and a half, which is typical of reviews that I do for CollectionDX when they're mint out of the box. Obviously I knew what a paper lantern was, but I did not know what a G8 was, and I certainly didn't know what an Okapaki is. Having seen Acts 28 through 30, where DaiGoyō makes his debut, and interacting with the toy a little more and doing research in preparation for this review, I started liking it a little more and a little more each day. And it occurred to me that for this toy in particular, you do have to have a little bit of that background information in order to appreciate what's going on here. And that was something that I lacked in 2009. It's not that I intentionally didn't look for information on it, it's just it didn't occur to me at the time. Maybe I should look a little more into it. But, you know, I'll let bygones be bygones there. I actually have it now. Now, yes, it is a very blocky, simple transformation, and it doesn't do a whole lot all by itself. The electronic feature, typical stuff there. I thought that the Hiden disc dispenser gimmick was actually not all that bad. Push in the back, pull this out. And, of course, it comes with a couple of unique discs all on its own. So, you know, this toy by itself, not bad, really. Not bad. Yeah, there are a couple of little things I would have liked. Like, I can understand why, but I wish that the legs would have been a little less blocky, like a little more folding or transforming of some kind. It's understandable why it happens like that, but then you have this really large gap in the back. Like I said, they probably made these simple just as a fill-in until you can get Shinken DaiGoyō assembled. And yes, there are my typical complaints about no wrist articulation, no pop-out elbows, but I suppose that was necessary because the instructions do tell you not to swing this thing around, because you actually can, if you work at it, you actually can pull it apart without squeezing on these things. So just be aware that that is a problem. So it's probably understandable with kids swinging this thing around all over the place. Joints might have popped out and started swinging around like a nunchaku. So that might have been a bit of an issue. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but that's probably why they didn't include those joints. Although, twisting wrist, that is inexcusable. There is one thing, though, that kind of surprises me, aside from lack of articulation in the wrists and in the elbows, and maybe a little articulation in the hips. I don't know, there's not a lot of space down there, but maybe a little articulation here and here. I'll forgive them for that. That's okay. But there was one thing that kind of surprised me. Now, the Ebi origami and the DX DaiGoyō can certainly do this. They'll actually take a Hiden disc, and they're actually able to hang on to it in the giant claws. Well, it surprises me, and this is probably my biggest unreasonable complaint, is that you can't get a Hiden disc into DaiGoyō's hands. Certainly not the attack disc, which is his alone. That's actually kind of surprising. Even if it doesn't have a thumb, you know, maybe have a little clip or something on the inside, you could stick it in his hand, because in that debut clip that I showed at the beginning of the video review, you can see him actually hang on to one of these things. Yeah, he can spit them out rapid fire, and yeah, that would have been kind of a cool gimmick, just push, 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 and it's just popping out rapid fire. That would have been kind of cool, because you really got to push this thing really hard in order to do that. And oh, by the way, careful, watch your fingers. You can totally put it back in that way if you want to. Such as, turn it upside down. Ooh, don't shake it! You can put that back in, okay? So, oh yeah, by the way, that's another way of refilling it. But anyways, yeah, I kind of wish it had been a rapid-fire, spring-loaded launcher. That would have been kind of cool, but I suppose the size of things and the weight of things, it probably wouldn't have shot out very far, so I'll forgive him for that. But what I won't forgive him for is, like I said, wrists, okay, but I can't really forgive them for not being able to have DaiGoyō hold on to a Hiden disc. That's a bit unfortunate. That truly is a missed opportunity there. And like I said, they did it with the DX DaiGoyō. They just chose not to recreate it here for some reason. Yeah, it wouldn't have been a particularly special gimmick, but it would have been a nice thing to have happen, since it is such a pronounced maneuver on the part of DaiGoyō in the show. And one of the bigger things that actually bugs me about DaiGoyō, and this is more of a personal preference thing, he's basically a copy of Genta, which in my mind is not a good thing considering how annoyingly over-enthusiastic and bubbly Genta is. I do not like him whatsoever, and so now all of a sudden in the show, oh my god, now we have two of these guys walking around all over the place. And this shows up in the toy to a certain degree in the form of the way he repeats, I have no idea what's going to show up next, but the way he repeats phrases over and over and over and over and over. Like that one, for example. He says that phrase over and over and over. Yeah, the toy may be quote-unquote randomly playing them, but still, it's the fact that it plays it so much. It plays that phrase over and over and over. I mean, I don't mind him saying other things like, here's, have your order, or Shinkenger, it's your turn, or, no, it's my turn now. I don't mind him saying those things, but, oh my god, this guy is starting to haunt me daily. Goyode, goyode! Goyode, goyode! And then, of course, there's this finishing attack. That's almost as hypnotic and annoying as Geta Geta and boy. You know, it's almost on that level where it just kind of follows me all over the place and I keep wanting to say it randomly. It's just driving me nuts. And, you know, that is part of the character and whatever, but I don't really care much for the character. But on the other hand, this is a toy. You don't really have to appreciate the character on screen in order to appreciate the toy by itself. So, yeah, that is kind of an annoying thing where his personality from the show is leaking over into the toy. Yeah, it's supposed to be like that. And by the way, why can't Hasbro and Takara Tomy do that with their Transformers brand name? You know, why can't they do that? Because, hey, the competition has been doing it for, well, let me think here, decades. So, yeah, that's a little thing that kind of bugs me. Oh, and there's one more thing that I got to bring up real quick here. What is this? I have no idea what this is. What is that? You know, it doesn't go here, doesn't go back here, doesn't fold down. What is this thing? I mean, I have no idea what this thing is. Why is it even there? Is it a safety feature of some kind? You know, you bump it here. Ooh, is it the ability to be able to pull these in, push these back in? No. Kids' fingers are actually smaller than mine. They should be able to push those in just fine. I'm the one who has trouble putting my fingers in it. I mean, I completely came across that by chance as I was playing around with the toy, like the second day I had it. I pulled it off and I was like, what the hell is this? What is that for? Yeah, it's in the instructions, but why is it there? What need is there for them to design that particular feature in this toy? I mean, he doesn't interact with any other origami or any other toys from the Shinkenger line. And Shinken DaiGoyō is just legs and arms. What is that thing? I don't get it. But, you know, this is not my first choice for a toy that I wanted to get. Like I said, in 2009, they turned it down. Yeah, I've gained a little more appreciation for it, that I've researched it into it a little bit more. But other than having no idea what this thing is and not being able to interact with the hidden disc over there, lack of posability, this toy is really not that bad. And like I said, about a day and a half into playing around with it and researching it and all those things, it actually has grown on me quite a bit. It's not my first choice. Like I said, I turned it down in 2009, and like I said, it's a secondary hero character, and I'm kind of on the fence on those. I like them or I don't. This is one that I do like. This is one that kind of proves the rule that, yeah, I do like secondary characters once in a while. This particular one just happens to work. So, yes, it is a nice little toy, and I do recommend getting it. Now, if I could just get my hands on that frickin' Kyoryu origami. I keep doing this every 6 months or whatever it is. I get these toys in like every couple of months, and I think I'm done with it, and oh look, another Shinkenger toy has popped up. This series is starting to haunt me. Come on, Internet, where's that Kyoryu origami? That's the one I need. Oh well, since it is pretty much the last toy I want to get my hands on from Shinkenger, maybe it'll finally happen in, another 6 months. So I guess I'm just going to have to cross my fingers on that one. And one last thing, I would like to convey my special thanks and appreciation out to KRX50 for generously taking time out of his busy college schedule to provide me with translations of all of DaiGoYO's audio dialogue. KRX50, thank you very much for your help, man, and I hope we can do this again sometime. This is AV Unit 4i for CollectionDX.com, signing off.